How to draft and sew jeans or pants pockets. There's no reason you should have to use a serger on front pockets for pants. Making them fully clean finish is not very hard and doesn't really take that much more time if you were to use a serger. This is what the finished product looks like. So the pocket opening is faced, the pocket bag is faced, and then the inside is fully clean as well. No serger to be seen because I didn't use a serger. Let's get started.
It is nice to have pants or jeans pockets that you already like, just to reference the measurements, but you don't necessarily need this, and you could also just steal my measurements. Grab the front panel of your pants pattern. I'm gonna be drawing the rough pocket shape of the pocket opening and then also the pocket bag right onto my front panel. That's where I'll go ahead and reference these shorts that I already made. And I did draft and sew these pockets, but I already know I like them pretty much exactly how they are, so I'm just gonna reference them. So first thing I'm gonna do is figure out my pocket opening. So how far I want it to come over on the top, and then also how far down I want it to come on the side. So I'm pretty much gonna do this exact pocket. So I'll just measure the top here. It's about 2.5 inches. And then my depth is 6.5 inches. And I'm measuring from the seam line. So I'm also gonna mark these measurements on the seam line of my pants. So that is a 1/2 inch in because this pattern has seam allowance. And it's also important to mark your pocket with seam allowance in consideration, because if you mark your pocket opening from the cut line, it's going to be significantly different after you sew it. So marking from the seam line, I said I wanted mine to come over 2.5 inches, put a little mark, and I measured 6.5, but I'm going to go more like 7. Boom. So I went over at the top 2.5 inches or 6.3 cm. And then I went 7 inches deep or about 18 cm. Just putting a little mark on the seam line. And now I'm just going to connect these two marks. And even though we marked them on the seam line, I'm going to go through my entire piece. So through the cut line of the pattern as well. I'm going to keep my pocket opening a nice slant. But if you want, you can curve it out with your curve tool, however much you'd like. And now we're going to mark our pocket bag. So I'm gonna grab my pants for reference. I'm gonna measure the pocket depth on the side seam. Mine's about 15 inches. And then also the width at the bottom. Mine's 6 inches. I'm gonna measure it from the top of the side seam at the seam line. So this corner down my pocket depth. So I said 15 inches. Put a little mark. And then my pocket width was 6 inches. I think I'm gonna go a little bit wider, probably 6.5. Mark 6.5 inches out. Now I'm gonna use these points and just square off my pocket bag and drawing my lines through my seam allowance. And I'll just go to the top, squaring the whole thing off, going through my seam allowance. Boom, so now I have my pocket opening marked as well as my pocket bag. So my depth is 15 inches or about 38 centimeters. And my width is 6.5 or 16.5 centimeters. But you can really do whatever measurements you want. And for this pocket bag in particular, I'm just gonna keep it very squared off, and then the whole side of it will go into the side seam. But if you wanted a more traditional jeans pocket, you could do something like starting a little higher, dipping down, and then rounding off this edge. And whatever you decide for the shape of the bottom of your pocket bag, we're still gonna sew it the same way. Now, before we pattern out these separate pocket bag pieces, we're just gonna add seam allowance to the pocket opening and the bottom edge of the pocket. And this long edge will be on the fold. So we already have seam allowance on this top edge and the edge that goes into the side seam. So I'm gonna add a 1/2 inch at the bottom for my French seam. And then I'm gonna add a 1/4 inch seam allowance for my pocket opening. And drawing right through the seam allowance on the waistline and the side seam. Once there's seam allowance on your pocket opening and the bottom of your pocket bag, grab a separate piece of paper that is big enough to cover 2 of your pocket bags. We're going to fold this paper in half, big enough to cover 2 of your pocket bags. Now I'm gonna place my pants pattern over the folded piece of paper, and I'm gonna line up the long edge of my pocket bag to the fold of the paper. So I'll just line up the line to the fold at the top. I'm going to line up the bottom of my pocket bag, so where we've drawn in that seam allowance, to the bottom edge of my folded paper. Just line up that line to the edge. And this side of my folded paper is nicely aligned. So just making sure this long edge is lined up with the folded edge of your paper. And then the bottom of your pocket bag is lined up with the side edge of the folded paper. And then also there's enough space to cover the top shape of the pants. Just to give you another quick visual, paper folded in half, pants piece on top, making sure to line everything up, and then everything up in here is also covered. Now I'm just going to put a weight onto my pants piece and then trace the edge of my pants pattern starting at the fold and around to the end of the pocket bag. Once you have a solid outline, you can pull your front panel away. Gonna mark it really quick. And we're gonna cut this piece out along the line we traced, making sure it's still folded in half. And since I traced around my pattern piece, I'm gonna cut the pencil away. You should be left with something like this. And if you had that roundness or different shape on the bottom of your pocket bag, you would cut that out as well. And this piece should now line up nicely with the top edge of your front piece. Now we're gonna cut along the pocket opening. So along the line that we added seam allowance, cut this right off. Your pants pattern should look something like this. Now take your front panel and we're gonna put it on top of the pocket bag piece, aligning this top edge with the top edge of your pocket bag piece, as well as the side edge with the side edge. Just like that. You can also double check with the piece that you cut off, just to make sure we're maintaining that same shape. Mine looks good. And now we're gonna trace the pocket opening onto the pocket bag and pencil. Now your pocket bag piece should look something like that. Now we're gonna flip our pocket bag piece open and cut away the pocket opening just on the side we marked. And boom, now your pocket bag piece is complete. If you're gonna use the same fabric for your pocket bag as you are your pants, you don't need to make a pocket facing, but I am gonna show you how to do that. So put your pants panel aside and grab your pocket bag piece and a separate piece of paper. Now place your pocket bag piece over your separate piece of paper. Then we're essentially just cutting a piece with the same shape of the top of your pocket bag, but that extends past the pocket opening on the top and the bottom. So when we sew our pocket, you don't see the pocketing material. So just place your pocket bag piece over another piece of paper, and we want that paper to go beyond the pocket opening at the top and at the bottom here. My rule of thumb is I usually like to have the pocket facing piece go at least an inch below and to the side of the pocket opening. So considering the fact that there is a 1/4 inch of seam allowance on the pocket opening, I'm just gonna go about an 1.25 to 1.5 inches below on the bottom and the side here. So I'll just position my piece. You can double check with your ruler. Then place a weight onto your pocket bag piece. And now we're just going to trace this top and side edge onto our new facing piece. And then once you have a nice outline of your pocket facing, just go ahead and cut this out. I'm gonna quickly label it. Now you can see this pocket facing piece will fit nicely onto our pocket bag, concealing the pocketing material. And I like to just fold over this bottom and side edge and top stitch my pocket facing piece on, but some people like to overlock, and you'll see that in a lot of jeans. So if you're gonna overlock, you can just round this piece out, and then you'll be able to get a continuous overlock on the pocket facing. So now we have our pocket bag, our pocket facing, and this is extra credit, but I'm also gonna show you how to make a facing piece for the pocket opening, so you won't be able to see the pocketing material, even if you look at the jeans from behind. And it adds a little bit of that structural integrity that just makes pants last even longer. So very similar process for the pocket opening facing. Just gonna flip my piece open to expose the pocket opening. Then I'll get a separate piece of paper, overlap my pocket facing piece, just so I have at least an inch below the pocket opening. I can measure to make sure. Then I'll just place a weight onto my pocket piece and trace the outline of my pocket opening. Now you can pull your pocket piece off and cut out your pocket opening facing. Now that you have all of your pocket pieces, we're gonna cut these out in fabric, so 2 of each. And for the facing pieces, you're gonna wanna cut it out with the same material as your pants. Or if you're just gonna make the pocket bag the same material as your pants, then you can just skip the facing. 2 pocket bags, 2 pocket facings, 2 pocket opening facings, and your front panel. We're first gonna combine the pocket bag with the pocket facings. I'm gonna lay my pocket bag side to side, grab my pocket facing piece. We're gonna place this on the side opposite from the pocket opening on both sides, and these edges should line up nicely. And then grab the pocket opening facing if you have it. And same idea, just laying it right up to the pocket opening. Now before we stitch these in place, we're gonna need to finish this edge of your pocket facing. So I'm just gonna fold it over a tiny bit and then I'll stitch it in place. Or you could overlock this edge and stitch it in place. And same for the pocket opening facing. I'm just gonna fold this edge over a little bit and then I'll stitch it on. Or you could just overlock this entire edge. And we wanna make sure that we're looking at the right side of our fabric. And then the only edges we need to finish are these and this, because the others will be in the seam. All right, so I just folded over my edge nicely. But like I said, you can also overlock this edge and this edge. But once I stitch this in, it'll be so clean. Now we're just gonna stitch around the perimeter of our facing pieces to hold them into place. And these edges will be in the seam, so really just basting them in place. So I'm gonna stitch these outer edges at a 1/4 inch just to make sure they're in place. And then on my folded over edge, I'm just gonna go right along the edge. But if you overlocked, I I would consider going once one way and then back the other way to really lock it in. Flip or pin it into place, or don't. Bring your piece to the sewing machine. Now I'm just gonna start on the edge that's gonna go to the seam, go around the raw edge at 1/4 inch, and then follow my folded over edge right on the edge. And once my facing piece is stitched in, I'll do the same thing to my pocket opening facing. All right, now make sure to attach your facings on both of your pocket bags. Now grab both of your front panels. We're gonna be placing the pocket bag onto the front panel. We're just gonna be lining up the pocket opening of the pocket bag to the pocket opening of your front panel and placing good sides together, or the sides on your pocket bag with the facings. Lining up the pocket opening to the pocket opening, right sides together. Flip or pin into place if you'd like. Now we're gonna stitch just the pocket opening at whatever seam allowance you added. So for me, that was just 1/4 inch. So I'm just gonna stitch both of the pocket openings at 1/4 inch. Once your pocket pieces are connected to your front panels at the pocket opening, we're gonna flip the pocket bag open, press it nice and flat and away from the front panel. Then we're gonna flip the whole pocket piece under the front panel using the pocket opening as a fold line. Now it's behind the front panel. Do that again real quick. So flip the pocket piece open, press along the pocket opening, making sure everything's laying nice and flat. Then we'll grab the top and the bottom of the pocket opening and flip the pocket piece under the front panel. Then we'll make sure the pocket opening is nicely rolled out. Then we'll press the pocket opening nice and flat. And I'm gonna make sure to have a little bit of the front panel peeking into the pocket rather than a little bit of the pocket piece peeking out onto the front panel. Should look something like this. So we flipped our pocket piece under our front panel and then pressed our pocket opening nice and flat. Now we're going to stitch our pocket opening. So I'm going to stitch on the very edge all the way down the opening, pivot over a few stitches, and then follow that stitch back. So I just started with the edge of my pocket opening, and now I'm following my stitch back at about 1/4 inch. Should look something like this. Do this to both sides and bring them back to your ironing board. Now we're going to flip both of our pieces over, exposing our pocket bag on the underside. Now we're just going to fold our pocket piece in half onto itself. Make sure this side is nicely aligned on all of the layers, as well as this top edge. And then we'll just press the fold of the pocket bag nice and flat. It looks something like this. And now all we're gonna do is close up this bottom edge. I'm gonna be closing this up with a French seam. So right now, my right sides are touching. All I'm gonna do is match up the wrong sides of the bottom of the pocket bag. So I'll just grab it, flip it open, and then fold it the opposite way that we just pressed. Just that very bottom edge, matching up the wrong sides. And now I'm gonna stitch up the wrong sides of the bottom of my pocket bag up at 1/4 inch. Then once the wrong sides are stitched up at 1/4 inch, I'm gonna flip my pocket bag through, roll out this seam we just sewed. Now all we're gonna do, make sure the seam is fully rolled out here, and we're gonna stitch again at just above 1/4 inch, and that will encase our original seam. So just the bottom of the pocket bag here, stitching at just above 1/4 inch, encasing that original seam. And make sure to backstitch where you start and stop. Boom, clean French seam. Do this to both sides. Press your pocket bag in half onto itself, lining up the side edge and the top edge. Once pressed nice and flat, we match up the wrong sides of the bottom edge of our pocket bag. Stitch this at 1/4 inch. Then you flip back through, stitch that again at just above 1/4 inch, and you'll have a clean French seam at the bottom. Once the bottom of your pocket bag is sewn up, you can flip to the right side. And to finish it off, all we're gonna do is stitch this top portion in place, as well as the side of the pocket bag to the front panel. These sides will be in the seams, but we want them to stay in place. So I'm just gonna stitch from the bottom of my pocket bag at 1/4 inch up to the bottom of the pocket opening, and then same thing at the top. So from my pocket opening over to the end of my pocket bag. Once you stitch up that top and side edge, you are done. Fully functional pocket based on both sides and completely clean on the inside. Woo!
This is again how it looks on the finished pants. So no serger, very clean on the outside, inside, and doesn't take very long at all. Let me know what other videos you'd like to see. And if you have any questions down below. Peace and love.